She laid here for 4 hours while the police did their investigation.
Tonight, too fast and now deadly. A Manitoba First Nation wants the speed limit to be brought down after a young woman was killed on a highway.
The buffalo is a sacred being. The tongue of the buffalo meant everything.
Bison are thriving in Banff National Park with the help of Treaty 7 nations and the Métis Nation of Alberta.
They might not be the greatest hockey players around, but they'll get there. They're out there having fun.
And hockey legend Reggie Leach keeps coming back to the north to teach kids all about hockey. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. A Manitoba First Nation is coming together after a young community member was fatally struck by a vehicle. The highway speed limit has always been a concern, but the First Nation is now calling for change. Ashley Branson has more.
She laid here for 4 hours while the police did their investigation. And after the 4 hours, we were able to touch her and say a prayer for her in a song.
Margaret Reset is the grandmother of Taylor Reset Catchaway. She was 19 and nearly 5 months pregnant when she was fatally struck by a car 2 weeks ago.
She was such an outgoing, loving person, always cared for others, listened to others, and joked around to make people happy.
Highway 278 runs right through Ebb and Flow First Nation and has a speed limit of 100 kilometers an hour. But when APTN arrived, the speed limit signs were nowhere to be seen.
Close person with Taylor that lives in Winnipeg, and he was very upset of what happened to her. And when he seen the speed limit sign coming into Ebb and Flow, he stopped it and he tore it down. He said that should never be there.
A family member and a friend of Reset's created a petition. Surrounding communities are even showing support.
Dauphin people have signed the petition, St. Rose medical staff, just about everybody in that town signed, and also Alonza, Kennesaw, Reedy Creek. It just goes on.
Chief Wayne Desjarlais says enough is enough. With community amenities located on either side of the highway, solutions are needed now.
But I think we have to have a different solution. Besides the speed zone being lowered, we need to have walkways in our community along the highway because of all the amount of traffic. We have people that drive by not only in vehicles but also in like semi-trucks, and they go in a very high speeds and through our community.
Chief Desjarlais says he's been in touch with the Manitoba Minister of Indigenous and Northern Relations. In a statement to APTN, Infrastructure Minister Ron Schuler says, at this time, the community would be required to submit an application to the Highway Traffic Board should they wish to change the speed limit.
As of right now, the petition has approximately 800 signatures, and now Chief and Council are set to meet with the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Relations on August 16th to state their concerns about their community. Ashley Branson, APTN National News on Ebb and Flow First Nation.
The Supreme Court of British Columbia has approved an injunction that will ban activists, the majority who are First Nation, from going on to one of the company's fish farms, but with one exception, a marine scientist. Alexandra Morton is a scientist who studies salmon. She works closely with First Nation groups and the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. She is the only person the injunction does not apply to, which means she can continue to measure the health of salmon around marine harvest fish farms. But for First Nation groups opposing marine harvest, they'll have to take a step back.
So Marine Harvest failed in their ultimate test to try and avoid the science, but they still got an injunction against, basically against First Nations, because that's who have been protesting.
4 months ago, an officer with the Anishinaabeg Police Services began a cross-country walk. After 125 days, he's wrapping his trek in the center of Canada. Sergeant Kevin Redsky started the project Hope in the Darkness, Walk for Youth Mental Health. The initiative was a challenge to all police officers to stand together and give the youth a voice. After his experience on the road, Redsky has plans for a new organization, strength and continuous change.
We're gathering, compiling all the information that we've heard out there. We're going to make it readily available to police officers, mental health organizations, communities, and anybody who wants it really. Again, we're going to share what we've learned, and hopefully that helps us better work together as a committee to utilize other resources to join in our efforts to help our youth.
Bison have now been extinct from what is now Banff National Park since the 1800s. Now the bison are coming back. As Tamara Pimentel reports, Parks Canada has officially reintroduced the bison to Banff.
For the first time in over a century, these wild plains bison roam free in the Rockies of Treaty 7 territory. For 10,000 years, a small herd lived in what is now Banff National Park, until driven to extinction. But the species has been reintroduced into the mountain ecosystem. With the help of representatives from each Treaty 7 nation and the Métis Nation of Alberta, a blessing ceremony took place before Parks Canada released 31 bison to roam free.
It was quite powerful to just turn around and watch the bison as these songs are being sung and drums and pipe ceremonies taking place. And I can't help but feel all through this project that a big part of why it's been going well so far has been because we have put such attention to this aspect of it.
It started off with 16 bison that were relocated from Elk Island National Park in February of 2017. They were held in a soft release pasture to prepare them for their new life in the mountains. Now, walking uphill, the bison begin to adapt. For the Stoney Nakoda people, whose ancestors lived in the area, bison are an important part of history. Alice Kakwit says the reintroduction of bison was well received in the community.
The buffalo is a sacred being, Katanga. The buffalo meant everything for us people. It provided shelter. It provided clothing. It provided food. It provided that spiritual nurturing.
Nurturing spiritually as well as nurturing for the environment. Bill Hunt of Parks Canada says the bison will create a habitat that benefits hundreds of other species like they once did.
Bison are a keystone species. Their biomass, just the sheer biomass, contributes to food webs. Their behaviors, the way they browse, the way they wallow, their contribution every spring in terms of shedding their coat, all of these little factors affect the whole food web.
As the bison explore their new home, Hunt says Parks Canada will continue to monitor the herd over the next 3 years and evaluate in March 2022. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Banff.
Pretty cool to see. Books and magazines are being replaced with traditional song and dance in libraries across Nova Scotia this summer. Mi'kmaq artist Trevor Gould is traveling Mi'kma'ki, giving lessons in Mi'kmaq culture. Angel Moore brings us the story.
Trevor Gould wows a crowd at the Keeshan Goodman Library in Halifax. Gould is traveling Nova Scotia to teach others about his culture.
I think this is my seventh library stop, and the turnouts have been great. A lot of people come to these shows, and yeah, they're great turnouts, great questions.
Libraries are a great place for people to meet and learn. Helen Thexton is the library manager and incorporates Indigenous culture into her programs.
We really try to work with that community and have them, tell us what they would like to see in our libraries and what they can bring to us.
That includes traditional singing, drumming, dancing, and teachings. It draws a curious crowd, and Gould is happy to share his knowledge.
Especially as a singer and a dancer, and I was always told that you're always singing, you're always dancing for the people. It's a gift that you're given. So I feel that that gift is also the knowledge and the teachings that come along with it.
Gould doesn't just show up and dance. He talks about history and hopes people are more than spectators. His efforts are paying off.
My favorite part was when he danced and he sung. I really am interested in Mi'kmaq culture, and I just found it interesting.
Libraries are not the only way Gould shares his knowledge. He is working on a short film about the Mi'kmaq legend Glooskap. His band, Eastern Eagles, just released an album, and he can be seen at powwows. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Halifax.
Time for a quick break, and then we'll continue our look at the child welfare system. Here's a look at Saturday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. 27 for Fredericton, Charlottetown, and St. John's. 20 in Nain, 22 for Happy Valley Goose Bay. In Montreal, 28, 25 in Quebec City and Saguenay. 29 in Sarnia, 28 in London and Toronto. Northern Ontario, 22 in Thunder Bay, 25 in Sioux Lookout. In northern Manitoba, 27 in Puckatawagan and the Paw. In Winnipeg, 27 as well, 30 for Brandon, 29 in Dauphin. In Saskatchewan, 29 in Swift Current, Regina, and Estevan. 29 as well in Stony Rapids, 28 for Uranium City. Welcome back. Tonight we finish our profile of Helena Wood's family. Wood lost her children to the state. Now she has her kids back, but the path was not an easy one.
I'm not going to go through this again. I'm not going to lose another daughter, another child because of him. He doesn't matter. He doesn't matter to me. What matters is my kids' future. Give them the best life I could possibly give them.
In February 2010, Helena Wood's 15-year-old daughter, Cassandra Wood, died by suicide. Helena believes witnessing years of domestic violence in the home was too much for Cassandra. In August, 6 months after Cassandra's death, Helena fled to Winnipeg with her kids, eventually settling in Steinbach, where she had to face some harsh realities.
I regret of knowing her. I wish I knew her, even though she was reaching out to me, but I turned her away because of all the domestic violence. I was too much concentrating on my abuse, trying to survive every day. How am I going to cope?
She drank to deal with the abuse and continued to drink to deal with her daughter's death. It numbed her feelings. It also cost her her children.
Jewel and Austin were trying to cope with the death of their sister. Their relationship with Helena began to deteriorate because of her drinking. She contacted CFS hoping to get mental health services for her kids. The agency responded by apprehending them. Jewel went back to St. Teresa Point to live with her father, and Austin was placed in a different home.
For Helena, that was her rock bottom. She wanted her kids back, and there was only one way, by getting clean and taking back control of her life.
I went to the emergency because I wanted to quit out on my own, but I knew I couldn't because my body. And then I went to the crisis stabilization unit over there too.
Doctors told Helena symptoms from withdrawal could be fatal if she quit cold turkey.
The prayers.
It's been 8 years since Helena left the community. She has been sober for nearly 2 years. Like many who recover, she needed support. She made new friends who did not drink, and she rediscovered her faith.
I go to church, and I go to a Bible study group every Wednesday. I call them my family, but those are my friends. So I go there and try to go find crusades. I love crusades. I try to go there when I can. And that's where my help is. And that's how I finally healed.
Both Jewel and Austin have since aged out of the child welfare system. 2 years ago, Jewel gave birth to Helena's first grandchild, a baby boy named Anthony. Last summer, Jewel and Anthony moved to Steinbach to live with Helena. Shortly after, Austin followed. It took 6 years, but finally Helena had her family back. But that was not an end. She needed to focus on staying clean and in control.
There's times that I want to quit because it's exhausting at times. So then I'm like, when I'm time like that, I look at my kids. I have to go on for these children. Even my grandson, look at him. Who's going to take care of him? Right? And I have to make it a safer, brighter future for him. She was chubby because she was sick that time.
Maxine Schindler knows the family. She watched as Helena worked on getting clean and rebuilding her life.
She can look her kids in the face and never be ashamed, because she did what she could do, and she did it to the best of her ability, and she never quit.
Shame, regret, and past mistakes. Helena had them, yet she is hiding nothing. In Steinbach, many Indigenous foster kids are being placed in non-Indigenous homes. Helena saw this and decided to team up with the Steinbach Arts Council to facilitate workshops on traditional Aboriginal culture. She invited foster families and members from the community to a tea and bannock event last fall. It is here where she spoke openly about Cassandra's death.
I think I was 14 when she made it, so her name was Cassandra. So she was my oldest, but she passed away already. So
she wants to tell people about her losses and what she has learned from her past. She hopes the classes can keep kids connected to their culture.
I know what goes on in the system, and I see a lot of foster kids in here, and they're like lost, and there's nothing here, and they're just, what are they going to learn? They need to learn. They need a sense of belonging.
This is all volunteer work. Physical pain from the beatings prevents her from working full time. She has chronic back pain and cannot stand for long periods of time, but she longs for more.
I want to be a therapist. I want to go back to school to be a therapist. That's my next step.
Judy Clausen, a cousin, sheltered Helena and her kids when they first arrived in Steinbach. She sees Helena's journey as a story of redemption and victory.
To see her still standing there, still trying to, take care of her kids, to still be standing, it's quite an accomplishment.
Helena wants to educate others about domestic violence. Part of that includes honoring Cassandra's life and what it could have been.
What do you think she would be doing if she was still here?
I'll probably, I don't know how many grandchildren I would have had. Yeah, I wonder how many grandchildren I would have had. Probably most of it, and then would she be married by now, and
Back in St. Teresa Point, Helena stands near the spot where Cassandra's body was found 8 years ago. She has visited the site a handful of times since Cassandra's death. But this time it is different. This time she is ready to move forward.
I have accepted it, but now facing it is very hard. And I wasn't ready before, but now I am.
Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Time for another quick break, but stick around. We'll see what the Riverton Rifle is up to. That and more coming up. Here's the rest of Saturday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. 22 for Peace River, Grand Prairie, and Fort McMurray. 24 in Medicine Hat, 23 in Red Deer and Edmonton. Over to British Columbia, 24 for Campbell River, 25 in Bella Coola, 26 for Fort Nelson and Fort St. John. In the Yukon, 19 in Mayo, 17 for Dawson and Beaver Creek. Over to NWT, 26 in Fort Liard and Trout Lake. +9 in Sax Harbor, 13 above for Paulatuck. To Nunavut, 10 in Whale Cove and Chesterfield, as well as Cambridge Bay. 11 in Iqaluit, plus 6 in Clyde River. Welcome back. A well-known hockey star is returning for another visit in Yellowknife to help youth improve their skills on and off the ice. Our reporter Charlotte Mort-Jacobs sat down with the Riverton rifle himself.
But I learned about racism playing junior hockey, playing in Winnipeg.
It's been a busy summer for Reggie Leach.
Edmonton.
The legend has been running hockey camps geared towards Indigenous players. But Leach doesn't just talk to them about what happens on the ice.
I know a lot of these kids. You know, I've been around for 7 years, and a lot of these kids come up from far north, and it's just amazing how they love hockey, and they come out and they're so happy and everything else. But the biggest thing is to give them guidance. You know, they might not be the greatest hockey players around, but they'll get there. They're out there having fun.
Tries to hit Bobby Clark on the line. Leach is free. Clark right on the Leach. He closes. Holmes. Score!
The Riverton, Manitoba native is known for such accomplishments as winning the Conn Smythe Trophy. But now he shares his story in public talks about overcoming addictions during his career.
I talk about life choices. I talk about drugs and alcohol. I can talk about pretty well anything. And right now, I'm just going to go out there and wing it, what I call it, wing it, whatever comes through out of my heart. And that's what I'll talk about.
What did you do to prepare yourself?
I never did very much this summer. All I did was play golf. Golfed about 9 holes a day.
Leach says he wants to show Indigenous youth they can accomplish more than just their hockey dreams.
Too many young parents they want to live their dreams through their kid, and you can't do that. You can't push them into, I'm a big believer of kids today should have a break from hockey instead of playing 365 days a year. I always say to the parents, do you work 365 days a year? It's the same thing with kids. Kids need a break from what they're doing and move on.
He says he enjoys coming to Yellowknife, meeting new people and seeing youth grow into better hockey players and better people.
It makes my heart happy when I help other people. I like to see people smile. I want people to all be kind. I want people to work together as one unit.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Some lucky youth there. A 30-meter-long art piece by Mi'kmaq artist Jordan Bennett is now hanging in the heart of downtown Toronto. Bennett has been shortlisted for this year's Sobeys Art Award. Depkig, the Mi'kmaq word for night, is a piece inspired by Mi'kmaq petroglyphs which depict the Milky Way. Bennett has revisited traditional elements and blended them with contemporary practices to bring a bit of the galaxy to the city. Thousands will pass by the piece, which will be on display until the end of August.
The piece itself is looking at the constellation that was drawn out in Kejimkijik National Park here of the Milky Way. And the piece honors that drawing. It also looks at a lot of Mi'kmaq stories and legends and creation stories.
And that is your APTN National News for this Friday. There's much more over on our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a safe and fantastic long weekend.